Hello everyone, my name is Sagar and I hope you are doing well. In this video, we will see how we can create a default dimension and will assign that particular default dimension to a vendor. So for that, I am going to create a runnable class. Now to create my runnable class, I can simply click on add. I will go to my class. Here I will go to runnable class and I will say my class name is create default dimension. Alright, I will simply add this class. So I've created my class and now first thing is that I will need to use this dimension attribute value set storage to create. So I will say dimension attribute value set storage and I will give a name as value set storage and I will so simply say question new dimension attribute value set storage. Okay, here we go. So I've simply created this class. Now the first thing is that let me go to my all vendors form. I have already opened my form and here let me open this particular vendor 1003. Okay, and here I will come to my this dimension part. So what I will do, I will assign this dimension, like the business unit will be 002, which is auto, and the cost center will be 007. So let me remove the default dimension from here first. I'll wait for this to get saved. So now before even I forget this, let me quickly write. So I'm actually looking at my business unit. So you can say business unit and cost center. And what value I need in my business unit is I think 002, right? That is what auto was there. And I think 007 was there. 007, which is trade shows. Okay, so let me write here 002 and here I will write simply 007. And now let me quickly store these value inside a container because I need to deal with multiple records. So I will say container. First thing is that I will tell my this container attribute con attribute and here I will simply say my business unit. And what else I need cost center as well. So then I can say here cost center. Alright, once this is done, then I can define one more container and this time this container will have the values associated with this dimension. So I'm actually now going to use my dimension values. So I can see here container, that is con attribute value, and I can assign the values. So what was the values? The values was 002, that is for auto, and then we have 007 for trade shows. So I'll write here 007 and I can close my container now. Alright, now what I will do, I will start looping through this my container, that is my attributes. So I can say here for integer I equals to 1 and I can say I less than equals to, I can calculate my container length using this con length function, and here I need to pass my container, so I will pass my container attribute here. Then I can increment my container here and I will simply start my loop here. And now the first thing is that I need my dimension, so I need to use my dimension attribute and dimension attribute value tables. So for that I will simply define my dimension attribute, and here I can say this as dim attribute, the short form of this. And similarly I can say my dimension attribute value. This will help me to store the value of dimension attribute. Then I can say dimension attribute value. Alright, now both the tables have been defined, and now here I need buffer of my dimension attribute. So I can say dimension attribute equals to, here I can use a function of this dimension attribute table, that is find by name. And as I'm dealing with multiple dimensions, so I need to pass one by one. That's why I have used my container. And here I can pass the name of my business unit first. So for that I can use my config function. Config, it's not coming. Config. Okay, here we go. Here I need to pass my container. My container name is con attribute. And here I need to specify the index. So index I will get from my I. That's why I use my for loop here. Then I can check if my dimension attribute, if I didn't get any rec ID, it means it's not a valid, right? So in that case I can say that, let me check it here. Okay, in that case I can basically skip this particular iteration, so I can use continue here. Alright, now this is completed. Now the next thing is that similarly I will check if I have the corresponding values here. For that I'm going to define a string variable named as dimension value. So why I'm specifically declaring this value I will tell you later, because later on I need to use it, so that's why it is good to store this in a string variable. So dimension attribute equals to config. This time I need my dimension attribute value this. Okay, so I can say here con attribute value comma I. Alright, and now if I'll check if my dimension value is not equals to blank. Okay, so let me start loop here. So I'm simply passing, if this is not equals to blank, then only I should go here, right? This time I will say my dimension attribute value. Let me write again, dimension attribute value, that is dim attribute value. Alright, I can use this dimension attribute value table, dimension attribute and here we have a function named as find dimension attribute and value. Okay, here I need to pass my dimension attribute, so I can get my dimension attribute from here, right? So I can pass my dimension attribute. And the second thing is that I need to pass my these dimension values as well, so I can simply pass my dimension value, dimension value. Okay, and the next is I can say update I don't want, and I will say here true. Okay, and now once all this is completed, let me come down. Yeah, so now once this is done, then I can store my this inside this particular object. Okay, so I can say my value set storage dot add item, and here I can simply use this dimension attribute value. Okay, alright, so now here it will basically iterate through each of them. Okay, and then from this class I have a function name, method named as save, which will actually provide me the dimension default or default dimension. So let me do this. So here now I will define a EDT named as dimension default, and I will give it a name as default dimension. Default dimension. Okay. And now when I will exit through this loop, inside my this default dimension EDT, what I can do, I can simply use this value set storage, and I can use this save function which will save the default dimension here. Okay, now the next thing is that I need to use my as I want to update my value inside my this 1003 vendor. So I will declare now my event table. Go to Visual Studio again. Okay, here I will define my event table. Event table, I will say event table equals to, let me quickly even get the buffer from here only. I will say find. So what was the number? The number was 1003. Alright, and here I can pass this true buffer. Alright, now what I can do here, I can start my TTS begin and commit, because as I'm doing transaction, so I will say TTS commit here, and here I can say event table dot default dimension equals to this new dimension. Okay, this default, here we go, this default dimension, and I can call my do update method here. Once this is done, then you can trigger a build. Okay, alright guys, so I have simply run my runnable class. If I'll refresh this, so I'm getting this 002 and 007, that is auto and trade shows. So let me reiterate what we did. We use this particular class dimension attribute value set storage. We simply initialize this class, then we define two containers for attribute and attribute values. Then I loop through this container attribute. So first of all for business unit, then to cost center. Here inside my dimension attribute, I simply get the buffer using my business unit. Then I checked, whether it's I'm getting a dimension attribute or not. If not, then I'm simply, skipping that iteration of my loop. And then further here, what I'm doing, I'm simply getting the buffer of my dimension attribute value. So for that, I need to pass my this dimension attribute table buffer and my this dimension attribute value. All right, and once I have all this, so I'm using this add item here. I'm simply adding all the buffer of my dimension attribute value table, and then I have declared a variable or you can say EDD named as default dimension. Here I'm simply saving this value set storage. Okay, and then I'm simply doing update. I'm calling update, and the record is getting updated. So this is how you can create a default dimension, or even you can assign this. You can assign this dimension to either to purchase order, sales order, customer. The only thing is that it should be a valid one. Alright, thanks for watching this video.